Welcome back to the channel. The CDC director testified in front of Congress yesterday, and I hate to be the one to say it, but she continues to lie. She's lying to Congress. Specifically, this was her lie. When asked by the representative, "It surprises me that the NIH, the CDC, didn't do any follow-up testing," he means of masking, "even while this was going on, to determine the effectiveness of this and the impact it was going to have on kids." Rochelle Walensky replies, "I appreciate, in order to do a randomized clinical trial, you need to actually have equipoise on the question. And ultimately what would happen, what happened, is that there were so many studies that demonstrated time and time again, in the height of COVID transmission, that masks were working to prevent transmission. And I'm not sure anybody would have proposed a clinical trial because there wasn't equipoise on the question anymore." So Rochelle Walensky gets in front of Congress and says there's no equipoise on the question of masking, even down to 2. And that, my friends, is an absolute and total lie. She is just lying, and she knows she's lying. And I'm going to prove it to you in this video that she is lying and that it's obvious she's lying. She is just lying, and she knows she's lying. And I'm going to prove it to you in this video that she is lying and that it's obvious she's lying, and there is equipoise on that question. But first, some of you are going to be wondering, well, what the hell is equipoise? The initial conception of equipoise was that an individual practitioner who puts somebody on a clinical study, say a randomized controlled trial where you have a chance of getting the treatment or placebo, that individual doctor is genuinely uncertain as to whether or not the treatment is better than the control arm. Some people say that you're actually 50-50, you have to be 50-50. Well, that mathematics typically is not used in this space, and you don't exactly have to be 50-50, and often we have a very difficult time articulating our own inner probabilities. Okay, so you don't have to be 50-50, but you have to be, what they say, genuinely uncertain to do no masks versus masks, which is her position. Why did they not run? My follow-up question was, okay, you don't have equipoise for that? So you say, why didn't you run a study of surgical masks versus N95s? Why didn't you run a study of kids wearing surgical masks versus cloth masks, which is what you said? Why didn't you run studies of cloth versus surgical? Why not a 3-arm study? No matter what, running 0 studies is unjustified. There has to be some study that she thinks there's equipoise for. Oh, you think N95s work better? Why didn't you run a study of KF94s versus N95s? Why not variations in it? You ran 0 studies. You're telling me in all of the masking space, you know all of the answers. You have no doubt no equipoise exists across all of it. You know that the Korean earlobe KF94 with gaps at the nose, that works as well as a tight-fitting duckbill N95? It's got to be bullshit. You know you're bullshitting me. There is equipoise. Proof there's equipoise. As Cochrane says there's equipoise. I say there's equipoise. You and I disagreeing. There's the equipoise for you, okay? There's the equipoise for you. But even if you held your deranged view, how do you justify not doing any studies at all? That's a Luddite position. That's very fundamentally anti-science. It's disgraceful, and I think that's why history will remember her as the worst CDC director ever. I mean, she's going to go down as the worst CDC director ever. She's not following principles of science. Not at all.
If I had known at that time that the boy had been in a sick bed, got up, went out on a forced march, and then collapsed and died, I would never have taken the shot.
The rationale for our recommendation was not on the basis of the death of a single individual, but it was on the basis that when we do see a change in the characteristics of the influenza virus, it is a massive public health problem in this country.
Dr. David Sencer, then head of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, is now in private industry. He devised the swine flu program, and he pushed it.
You began to give flu shots to the American people in October of '76.
October 1st.
By that time, how many cases of swine flu around the world had been reported?
There had been several reported, but none confirmed. There had been cases in Australia that were reported by the press, by the news media. There were cases in...
None confirmed. Did you ever uncover any other outbreaks of swine flu anywhere in the world?
No.
Now, nearly everyone was to receive the shot in a public health facility where a doctor might not be present. Therefore, it was up to the CDC to come up with some kind of official consent form, giving the public all the information it needed about the swine flu shot. This form stated that the swine flu vaccine had been tested. What it didn't say was that after those tests were completed, the scientists developed another vaccine, and that was the one given to most of the 46 million who took the shot. That vaccine was called X53A.
Was X53A ever field tested?
I can't say. I would have to...
It wasn't.
I don't know.
Well, I would think that you're in charge of the program.
I would have to check the records. I haven't looked at this in some time.
The information form, the consent form, was also supposed to warn people about any risks of serious complications following the shot. But did it?
No, I had never heard of any reactions other than a sore arm, fever, this sort of thing.
Judy Roberts' husband, Gene, also took the shot.
Yes, I looked at that document. I signed it. Nothing on there said I was going to have a heart attack or I can get Guillain-Barré, which I never heard of.
What if people from the government, from the Center for Disease Control, what if they had indeed known about it? What would be your feeling?
They should have told us.
Did anyone ever come to you and say, you know something, fellas? There's the possibility of neurological damage if you get into a mass immunization program?
No.
No one ever did?
No.
Do you know Michael Hatwick?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Michael Hatwick directed the surveillance team for the swine flu program at the CDC. His job was to find out what possible complications could arise from taking the shot and to report his findings to those in charge.
Did you know ahead of time, Dr. Hatwick, that there had been case reports of neurological disorders, neurological illness, apparently associated with the injection of influenza vaccine?
Absolutely.
You did?
Yes.
How'd you know that?
By review of the literature.
So you told your superiors, the men in charge of the swine flu immunization program, about the possibility of neurological disorders?
Absolutely.
What would you say if I told you that your superiors say that you never told them about the possibility of neurological complications?
That's nonsense. I can't believe that they would say that they did not know that there were neurological illnesses associated with influenza vaccination. That simply is not true. We did know that.
I've said that Dr. Hatwick has never told me of his feelings on this subject.
Then he's lying.
I guess you would have to make that assumption.
Then why does this report from your own agency, dated July 1976, list neurological complications as a possibility?
I think the consensus of the scientific community was that the evidence relating neurologic disorders to influenza immunization was such that they did not feel that this association was a real one.
You didn't feel it was necessary to tell the American people that information?
I think that over the years we have tried to inform the American people as fully as possible.
As part of informing Americans about the swine flu threat, Dr. Sencer's CDC also helped create the advertising to get the public to take the shot.
Let me read to you from one of your own agency's memos planning the campaign to urge Americans to take the shot. The swine flu vaccine has been taken by many important persons, he wrote. Example, President Ford, Henry Kissinger, Elton John, Muhammad Ali, Mary Tyler Moore, Rudolph Nureyev, Walter Cronkite, Ralph Nader, Edward Kennedy, etc., etc. True?
I'm not familiar with that particular piece of paper, but I do know that at least of that group, President Ford did take the vaccination.
Did you talk to these people beforehand to find out if they planned to take the shot?
I did not know.
Did anybody?
I do not know.
Did you get permission to use their names in your campaign?
I do not know.
Mary, did you take a swine flu shot?
No, I did not.
Did you give them permission to use your name saying that you had or were going to?
Absolutely not. Never did.
Did you ask your own doctor about taking the swine flu shot?
Yes, and at the time he thought it might be a good idea. But I resisted it because I was leery of having the symptoms that sometimes go with that kind of inoculation.
So you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Have you spoken to your doctor since?
Yes.
And?
He's delighted that I didn't take that shot.
You're in charge. Somebody's in charge.
This
is your advertising strategy that I have a copy of here.
Who's it signed by?
This one is unsigned. But you'll acknowledge that it was your baby, so to speak.
It could have been from Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. It could be from CDC. I don't know. I'll be happy to take responsibility for it.